So, welcome, Genevieve. Would you like to introduce yourself to our viewers?
I would. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Dr. Genevieve Feliú, and I am the futurist researcher for the Thought Leadership Institute. I specifically focus on the future of coaching. So I'm excited to be here today and share some thoughts with you about that.
Fabulous. Yes, I think you work in a very interesting space. So, I love our conversations whenever we're able to do that. So, looking back, so actually that's quite ironic, isn't it? You're a futurist, and we're about to look back. So, anyway, looking back on 2025, and reflecting on any of the moments that you may have observed, um, can you think of a time where there has been a meaningful moment where technology, human connection, and coaching have come together?
I think that's really an excellent question. And in terms of really, if we want to think about the future, part of understanding that is understanding both where we've been and where we are today. And that helps us understand where we want to go. For me, what I think has been really interesting about 25, and I've really I will tell you, my prediction is that AI was going to catch on like wildfire and everyone was going to really embrace it. But that prediction is not playing out quite that way, which I think is a positive for everyone. Because I think that what we're actually seeing is the more AI we see, the more the hunger for presence and human connection is growing. And I think that that's really important to kind of acknowledge that it's not my perception that AI has replaced the person. And in fact, we see a lot of movement toward the analog lifestyle and things of that nature. We're even seeing people going back to landlines and things like that. And I think that that really just demonstrates that the technology is it's great, it's helpful, it does a lot of things for us, but what it doesn't do is feed our needs for emotion, identity, value, relationships with others, and really understanding where we want to go and how we can get there. So I
Hmm.
think it's been interesting to kind of see that the more digital life has become, the more people actually crave real presence. It has been an interesting observation for me.
Yes, interesting also for me to hear you share that with us. So that's
Mhm.
yeah, food for thought, but definitely a reflection there.
Yes.
Um, and then in the space of AI, because it is still relatively new for
Mhm.
most people to embrace, in this period of experimenting and learning, what principles guide you or us or should be guiding us in order to keep AI human-centered, ethical, and inclusive?
I think the technology is happening. We are not going to stop the AI train. And I think one thing that's been important is one thing technology has surfaced for us is really what humans can do with a technology supporting it. So I embrace that technology. I think we are not going to deviate from it. I think it is quite seductive in what it can do for us, especially as our lives become more and more complex and more layered. I really see, in my mind, two futures are beginning to emerge. And what I find really fascinating about this is there's one path that really sees us headed toward a future of care-centered AI. And the idea behind this is if we train AI to have almost a mother mindset toward the humans, it will evolve to place us in a care-centered way. And that is where we can focus on depth and ethics and meaning, and coaching can become more accessible but remain very human, right? But the other path is very much a technology or controlled centered AI future. And in that one, we are seeing some of this happen now. And I think people are already beginning to reject it, particularly in the workplace where emotional data is being used to monitor us, or coaching can feel like surveillance at times, or these systems feel like we're under surveillance, I should say. And we're starting to see some inequities widen in that particular future. I think my hope for the future is very clear that we go toward a care centered space. And I think that that really comes down to that ethics is not going to be determined by the technology. And I actually feel that it isn't going to be determined by the technologists that are creating it, all of our technology leaders.
Hmm.
Ethics is something we're going to have to do. And we're going to have to lean in our community pockets and even at the global level to really make AI show up in ways that support the human experience. And that is really very much what I hope we are going to go toward. And I think we all understand this. The algorithms, for better or for worse, are being built on both the things that are best about the human and the things that are actually the worst about us. And we've seen all the reports of some of the terrible ways that these algorithms can show up as we train it. But I think that we just have to lean in. And I think coaching is really uniquely qualified to do this. And that is something that I hope that the coaching community embraces, ICF embraces, is that the ethics are not going to magically appear. We have to put our arms around that, shape that, put in the time, the work, the effort to really develop the ethical algorithms that allow AI to go into this more human-centered space. And that's where some of my work is really focused. It also means that inclusion, I want to be clear too, inclusion from an ethical perspective doesn't just mean more. Inclusion means that adoption, that what we produce, the algorithms that we use, the way that the AI is designed and ultimately deployed, each of us will make a decision about the AI we adopt, and that then creates a ripple effect. And so inclusion is not going to be about let's just make it available to everyone. It's going to be about, does everyone have a voice, an equal voice, a way to really shape where that AI algorithm is going? And again, I think coaching is uniquely qualified to raise the alarm on that and
Hmm.
continue to walk that path. And that can be an important part of our mission, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And I am adopting that, if you like, taking the ethical and responsible stance on behalf of ICF
Mm-hmm,
in the AI function. So, yes, I agree
mm-hmm.
completely. Yeah. And if you imagine one shift that could positively shape the next chapter of coaching, what would it be?
I very much hope that one, I want us to embrace human centered thinking. And I'm going to give you this big picture answer first. And that is this idea that AI, all technology, we are at a place in the development of technology where we're creating all these new shiny cool things and they're starting to take on a life of their own. But a point is coming where we don't shape the human experience to the technology. We need to shape the technology so that the human is at the center, or the I'm using human centered, but I really mean that as the bigger idea of the living things in the ecosystem need to be part of the conversation if we really want to have truly ethical AI in our future. I think, but to answer very specifically your question, I think one thing I think would be great is to begin moving in the direction of coaching communities. I think right now we may be, and it makes sense. ICF and pardon me, all of coaching has been on a developmental journey. It's the industry is about 30 years old, and we needed heroic coaches to get this off the ground, get the word out, help people understand what coaching is, how it's helpful to them, and why they should adopt it. But I think we may be moving into a future where it really is about communities of practice. We now live in these incredibly complex spaces. Globally, we're connecting in all of these new and different ways. And so I think that we may be moving to a place where the individual coach or the individual that you're talking with may not have all the right answers. And what we may want to start leaning into is a community of practice. And what that does is it shares the burden of finding our way through the complexity across multiple groups, but it also opens us up to really much more diverse inputs and understandings of the world around us, which I think ultimately are going to help us set shared ethical standards. I think it's going to help us experiment more thoughtfully and really understand what's helpful and what might be harmful. And most important to me, how do we help each other navigate these new worlds and get through all of these identity shifts and all this uncertainty together? So it's really going to move to a place of, in my mind, these kind of coaching learning communities where I can take a challenge to a group of trusted advisors and get several inputs. I don't think people need more information. I think we're drowning in information. I think we need help um, understanding what all these inputs tell me and what do they mean to me and how do I use them to develop and walk the path that I want to walk in ways that are important to my values. So
Mm.
that's what I'm thinking.
On the communities of practice, so I'm just connecting the dots with something I've had a conversation with others on. So I just want to explore it with you if you don't mind. So what we've been talking about is the more that the large organizations that have typically been the area where coaches have uh, had a lot of work and involvement, the more that platforms move into these spaces, there are concerns that that will reduce or dry up the opportunities for coaches. But in
Mhm.
fact, I wonder if the opportunities are now moving into a different space. So the coaches are being elevated into niche areas, or like you described, a community of practice. It might be that the individuals within an organization may be getting coaching in other ways, but the organization and systems within the organization need a community of practice, a group of people that can help
Mhm.
think about how that organization, how it operates itself, but then how it fits within the wider ecosystem of the world. You know, there may be governmental things that they need to consider, and maybe that community of practice of coaches that are in those speciality fields. Maybe that's, I don't know. What do you think to that?
Well, I think so. I don't think this is an or conversation. And I think that in some ways, as we were walking through some ambiguity, this has been the biggest change to face human culture, I would argue, maybe ever, but
Mm,
definitely in the last several hundred years. And the pace and the complexity, we're not going to solve that once. All of us are going to, even as all of this complexity that we're living in comes around us, we're still moving through the natural transitions of the lived experience, right? Which bring their own set of complexities and new ways of learning. So even if you, quote, solve the complexities of being 25, you're then going to face another set at 35 and 45 and so on, right? And so I think first I would say this is not an or conversation. I think what AI and technology in general allows is an and conversation. And for me, I think I don't personally think that AI is going to gobble up coaching. I do think that there are some lower level things that actually probably all of us could use coaching on. But if it's about time management, productivity, kind of some basic level things that I need coaching on, maybe I'm learning a bit more about emotional intelligence or things like that in my leadership journey, something like that. I actually think there's a tier of that where you actually could interact with an ethically trained AI tool and develop the skills you need and move along. And then what I think could be really beautiful about that is that then frees the coach up for these real complexities that we're all facing, these really tough nexus points that we all reach in our careers, in our personal lives, whatever it is you're going to coaching for, that I think you need more, right? And I think that that's where I think that coaching can really begin to shine. And I think that's even true in the professional space as well, that it if a group of people are working on a set of skills that are similar, perhaps they could come together and be in this community, because I think that again, it's really ultimately, we've all heard the term lifelong journey. We've heard that, and I think it meant something 30 years ago that is very different than what it means today. I think we are truly involved in lifelong learning now, and what you knew 5 years ago isn't gonna carry you forward here. So I actually think organizations should embrace this. And in fact, I think that it's even important for organizations to ask themselves, for example, there's some signals emerging where a lot of coaching in these platforms, the Future Markets report just said that folks are logging in late in the evening and they're seeking coaching on burnout
Mm.
and other things like that. And so to me, I think that organizations should embrace this as an and, because that's an incredibly important data input that you should be paying attention to as an organization. And I think that the technology could help them get there.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything else that you would like to share with people before we close the call?
No, I think what I would say is that I think one thing that coaching can really help us all with is that slowing down and reflecting is becoming a legitimate professional skill. And
Mm.
I think that that's something I just want to share that I have found really interesting. That can we begin to normalize slowing down as a reaction to some of this complexity? Can we help leaders understand why that's important? Can we help individuals understand why that's important? Because I think that we are finding ourselves approaching what I would call our tipping point. We just can't run any faster and be healthy and well in our lived experiences. So, what do we do to begin to lift presence over pace? And that is something that I think, again, coaching has the tool set to help others come to. So I thought I would share that today.
Beautiful. Thank you very much for your time today, Genevieve, and I wish you happy holidays and look forward to collaborating with you in 2026.
Thank you. Always a delight. Love the innovation work you're doing. And I can't wait to see what you bring to the community next year as well. Thank you.
Fabulous. All right. Thank you.
Alrighty.